All right, it's Monday, March 31st. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And even though it's the first day of the new week, it's also the last day of the month and the quarter. So we'll look at those charts in a second. But in terms of today, you can see on the daily chart, we do end up with a kind of a two down reversal looking day to start out the week. We gapped lower, which I'll show you in a minute. It was right near the bottom of the pre-market range between the blue lines. We were also hitting a key pivot area here on the chart, so that meant we could end up with a potential pause right there. It could either lead to a reversal, or it could be, it could have went right through it also. But it's a good area where, after kind of coming down, and hitting this target, you would expect some kind of pause, even if it's going to head lower. So we ended up with a pretty big green reversal day to the upside. If we go to the 15-minute chart, first bar went down, gapped down big and then started down big. To me, it was kind of an exhaustion risk in terms of wanting to play the momentum. And right out of the gates, as soon as bar number two formed, it went up. And I wanted to see if it was really going to follow through before even considering a sell trade, knowing we're at a key pivot point here that it could pause and you're at exhaustion risk. And anyway, once that second bar formed, I saw the third bar kind of come up. And technically, at that point, in terms of intraday structure, you're biased a little bit to the upside at the moment. Quite frankly, what I did is I did buy some calls here, just to see how much of a retracement we might get. And I knew I was below the midpoint of the prior day and everything else, which kind of goes against my my general game plan in terms of what I'm looking to do. So you can see here earlier on, I'll just point it out, I didn't even post it because I bought some 540 calls at 14.33, and just like 5 minutes later, I exited at 14.24, essentially break even. And they closed at 20.25. But you can see here, I bought it at like where is it, 10:08 in the morning, and just exited at 10:14 because I said I don't really want to be in the trade. It kind of goes against my game plan, even though I was kind of aggressively thinking it might head up. And then what I decided to do is, when it kind of came into a gap in here, I decided to aggressively buy puts, looking for that. Even though it really didn't set up that way, I scaled out and just to set up kind of what I thought was no risk trade, and it was kind of hanging in there. Then it popped up big. And I took a small loss, as I described. So, for me personally, I missed an opportunity to the upside, although it was against my game plan, so that's fine. And then I took in a very aggressive trade here, just to see what would unfold, and it was end up a small loss, even though the structure was up all day long. Now, the good news is with NVIDIA, once I saw that loss happen and I saw what was going on in the market, I decided to buy NVIDIA at this lower blue line, and that moved up nicely. So in the end, I came out ahead on the day. But in terms of the SPY, I guess if you want to look at it, it was below the midpoint of the prior day. Typically, I'm just not looking to buy those. I did know it was a key inflection point, and that was the reason my instincts was to give it a shot. But then I just kind of said, no, I don't want to be in the trade. But it ended up with a nice two up or a two down failure green bar. So now tomorrow, what we get to see is, do we get a two up day, which you kind of expect that high to be tested? And if so, we could start buying that. And now we have some targets up here. So the broadening action on tomorrow would be to head up and hit that target. If we can't do that in any form and it fails, it could either head up and then never, immediately fail near the open and come back to the midpoint of that bar. Maybe it goes a two up tomorrow and doesn't reach a target, and then you get a two down on Wednesday, and then we can get to see if we start breaking through the open of the week here and turning it red and keeping that downtrend intact. But you never know. So at least we have those reference points going forward. You expect a little higher, but we want to see if it hits those targets, and any rollover to the downside, we want to see if it kind of takes out the open of the week and turns it, back to red. So the weekly chart certainly has a nice look to it. We had a 3 bar from last week, so that can certainly mean, that it's just broadening action. direction, higher highs, lower lows, and we could be working towards higher highs if that's what the price wants to do. On the weekly chart, we got to get through the midpoint of that bar in order to really feel comfortable we're heading back to those highs, and that will coincide with daily trades that reach their daily targets, and then if that happens, it can pinball into reaching the weekly, going back all the way. We made higher highs, lower lows, and back up to higher highs. So that's certainly in play, and now you get to kind of, play the upside as long as that stays in force, but you kind of know the area where it could fail, and if it does fail, you know where it has to come below in order to turn things negative. And then on the monthly chart, we end up with a red, month, which you were expecting all along as this month went along. So in some form, you kind of expect that low to be tested, but you never know for sure. So we also know what the open of the month is starting tomorrow, and we'll see if we could, eventually, even if we start up a little bit, do we then come through that open of the month? And then, at that point, you kind of expect to test those lows and see if we get continuation to those targets. And finally, on the quarterly chart, it is a 3-bar quarter. And that means, we made higher highs and lower lows here. So now the question is, that's just broadening action on that 3 months. So for the next 3 months, the question is, do we broaden to much higher time frame targets below, or is it just a type of thing where we're consolidating in here and can head higher? And that would align with more this month here, where we had like a 3-bar to the downside, a red, quarterly chart, but then we stayed above the open for the next quarter, and for the next 3 months we went up. So, as long as we stay above the open of whatever the quarter is, and that's tomorrow, then, we could be biased to the upside as well, because anytime you have a 3-bar, that could be just, a reversal area, higher highs, in this case, lower lows, and then going back to higher highs at some point. The actionable signal on this, in this case, was a 3-1 bar, and then that 2 up was kind of the actionable signal, but you stayed biased for those 3 months prior because it was above the open. So we're going to see what happens for these next 3 months as well. And if we head lower, then we could be broadening to higher targets down there below, more the yearly targets. We'll see if we get through the midpoint of the prior year. But, I'm not really expecting that. I'm almost expecting, even if we head a little lower, it's almost going to be a 3, maybe a 2, slight 2 down. If we stay down there for a few months, and then a 2 up would be a good actionable signal going into the second half of the year. So all that stuff we'll get to see in the next 3 months. But as long as we stay above the open, starting tomorrow, then we can be biased to the upside as well. So we're going to see if this weekly chart ends up with a weekly reversal, getting through the midpoint of this week. We're going to see if this daily bar follows through a little bit. If it could hit some of those targets, then it would, pinball the weekly chart higher. And if it fails, then we could be rolling over to the downside, towards the end of the week. So that's how this, week starts and how the quarter and month ends, and we will go from there. But today was definitely, intraday structure was only biased to the upside, whether you took it or not. If you didn't, want to take that trade, then you're almost doing nothing all day because there were no signals really to sell. So strong day, good looking green reversal, and that could mean, we are heading higher here. So let's go with that until proven otherwise.